Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. So in today's message, I'm going to talk to you about how we can make peace with this healing journey. As trying as it is, as challenging as it is, and trying to also determine, where we are, because sometimes that's hard, with learning and just all the searching that we're doing constantly, trying to make sense of things because we were stuck in this fog for so long. And by the way, I'm on my second cup of coffee, y'all. I'm gonna be honest, it's really, really good. But don't be so hard on yourself. If you found something that helped you through those really tough, sometimes years or even decades, and I'll give you an example. For me, it's been sugar, because growing up, it was funny because I really didn't even hardly ever eat anything with sugar. I loved vegetables. I loved bread, and I know bread can be converted in your body into sugar, but as far as like desserts or sugary drinks and things like that, I just had no desire for it. But yet sugar became kind of like my companion, through some really confusing and hard times in my life. And I have a friend that, for her, she told me that smoking was like that for her, and the way she put it was, it's kind of like it was like a friend to her. Like, she knew it was a constant and it would always be there for her, in that sense. And I understand that, because a lot of people, turn out not, you think they're for you and with you and truly care about you, and yet they seem to be nowhere to be found when you're going through some hard stuff. And so, and maybe, it's hard to know a person's true motivation. I mean, maybe sometimes people that do care about us just don't know how to support us, or because they can't relate. Maybe they haven't been through the same kind of stuff we have. But still, just to make yourself known, that you are there for someone, it means the world. It really does. And so I just thank you all for expressing any thoughts that you have in the comments, for your likes on the videos, if you feel called to do that. Just any kind of engagement, I appreciate that, and I hope that I'm able to offer you some support as well. Just even if it's, validation, like, hey, I'm not the only one that went through that. Or if I'm able to offer you insights, or like I say, to get the wheels turning, if I'm able to do that for you and you find that valuable, then that's great. That's wonderful. Because it's hard when you feel like you're walking through the valley of the shadow of death, is what it feels like, alone. When it's done alone, it's just another layer of difficulty. And yet, even if you aren't alone, that process itself is such a personal one. The process of growth and learning and transformation is kind of like it has to be done alone to some degree, because we all perceive life differently. All of our experiences, everything really comes down to, I feel like, subjective reality, And so, but yeah, the friend for me that's been a constant in the past 20 years has been sugar. And I'm hoping that this can be the year for me that I am able to still appreciate it, but more in moderation, keeping it more in balance with a healthy diet. You know what I mean? I'm a fairly active person, by nature. Sometimes I tend to, want to rest a little more, and that's important. That's important too. I talked about that, I think, in my last video, where if you don't, like, I think one of the cards I pulled from my little Buddha doodles art deck, is a good rest or a good night's sleep, something like that, is half the work. And that's so true, because what do you do if you don't get good sleep? You compensate. It's like you substitute, you compensate, with sometimes calories, more calories than you need, because you're just like, how am I going to get through this day if I don't have this big sugary drink with lots of caffeine, and that's understandable. Life is pretty demanding, so just give yourself a break. Just understand that going through psychological abuse, and even just very confusing times in general, or a growth stage in your life, whatever it is, trying times, when you go through that stuff, it does throw you out of balance. And if you just imagine, if you went through this stuff, this really hard stage in your life for, a decade, well, then of course, it doesn't make sense to think you're going to just automatically snap your fingers and get back in balance in a year. It's kind of like, it's a process, getting back into balance. So I just want to just encourage you just to breathe, just to just kind of relax, and we're going to talk about that today. Just getting into a comfortable place of peace, even if you don't feel like you're really there yet. Do we really ever get there, wherever that is, and we're just done? I feel like that's at the end of this human experience, right? So just kind of settling into the reality of the highs and lows, and learning to kind of surf those waves and just go with the flow and be okay with it. That's going to be at the heart of our message today. So I hope you enjoy it. So I read the next chapter in this book, and it's about reincarnation, which is, she positions it like, even if people don't really have that as a part of their religious or spiritual beliefs, just the theory itself can be a healing modality to just kind of go there in your mind, which is interesting. I think there's even different cultures and belief systems where, people believe you can reincarnate as an animal, which is interesting. And I don't know a lot about it, but chapter 6, we're not going to focus on it really hardly at all. I just wanted to say I did read it, and I did highlight some and make notes, but I didn't feel called to share, a lot. I don't know why. And so I try to follow those promptings inside, but I will share the opening of it. The title is Healing Fear Across Space and Time. And what is the opposite of fear? I feel like it's faith. It's faith. Two ways of looking at things. You have reality, you have objective reality. Things are what they are, but you can, see them totally different depending on your stance, right? So you have fear, and then to me, on the opposite side is faith. But this chapter opens with a quote from Ovid, which, come to find out, I looked it up, was a Roman poet from, he was born in 43 BC. It's like, how is this stuff preserved, that far back, with, just all the changes that, even our physical landscape, Earth has been through. It's pretty wild, but somehow it's been preserved, right? So the quote goes like this. It says, "Let your hook be always cast. In the pool where you least expect it, there will be a fish." And I thought that was a cool statement of faith. You know what I mean? And I think this is one of those things where you can see this quote from one angle or the other. It's kind of like, are you casting your hook into the pool in anxious expectation? Kind of like you have this anxious need to be filled, and you're approaching life from this mindset of lack? Or is it more of a faithful anticipation? Casting your hook, not so much out of need as just being in a place of peace where you are actually capable of being receptive to good things coming into your life, which is required to me if you really want to welcome anything new into your life. Because that spirit of death that spirit of decay that I've talked about before can be kind of, not only is it confusing, but it's also paralyzing, kind of tranquilizing. Like you're tranquilized, you're brainwashed, and you're literally just closed off when you're like that, and you're not even able to have the eyes to see something beautiful, even if it's right before you. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just learning to get ourselves mentally and spiritually in balance, where we can flow with, you know, whatever's going on. And in so doing, you can think more clearly. You can't think when your emotions are out of balance. You just can't. You can't even think straight. And so thinking straight is a beautiful fruit from keeping your emotions in check, right? And therefore, I would say seeing things clearly. So I just wanted to share that quote with you all. And you know, when it says, let your hook be always cast in the pool where you least expect it, there will be a fish. I would say, you know, everyone we come across in life has something to teach us. And furthermore, life itself always has something to teach us, right? So that's just kind of a good mindset to have, I feel like, as we go through this this journey. But as far as healing goes, I feel like healing comes in layers, and it's not just clearly defined stages or levels, you know, like checkpoints. You know, like my daughter, I mentioned, is, you know, into video games now, and I enjoy it with her as well, but it's kind of like you can get to these checkpoints, and then, you know, you can move on from there. So it's you know, I feel kind of like, what do they call it, a pipe dream, kind of like I don't know where that came from. It's like this unrealistic expectation that sometimes we have, that things are neat and structured and clearly defined when they're really not. And I think that's relevant when it comes to healing. I think healing is more like that winding road, you know, not that straight path, but it's just defined in the Bible as narrow because it's difficult. In fact, it's so difficult. There's a reference to it being easier for like a camel to go through the eye of a needle or something like that. I'll drop it down here in the description, that verse if I can find it. But so it's hard. It's really, really hard. And so healing is not easy either, as we know. And it's therefore not just something where we meet these checkpoints and continue to progress. Sometimes it's three steps forward, 2 steps back. So I feel like it comes in layers, you know. And in order to make peace while you're healing, it's kind of like akin to riding the waves. You know what I mean? So I think it's important to notice this, and in doing so, we can reframe what we experience in the healing phase after a very trying time. We can reframe what falls into progression, you know, making progression versus regression, you know, progression versus regression. You have the pro and the re. You know, what's moving you forward, what's moving you backward, you know. And I'll give you an example. One example is crying, okay? So if you were stuck, it's kind of like initially, I say you, but really me, I feel like a lot of times we view crying as you know, bad, you know, or a sign of not being healed. But here's the thing. If you were stuck in a trauma response of like dissociation, or just being frozen for years from brainwashing, being under a spell, then crying can actually be a really good sign, okay, a good sign. It means, and I say that because to me, it could mean that you are reconnecting to your own inner guidance, right? Which means that you are likely finally detached from this controller's influence, right? Like the spell is broken, because sometimes they try to make you comfortable, you know, complacent, so that you don't wake up and see things clearly. You know, they keep you in this fog, but sometimes it's a somewhat comfortable fog, unless they want to apply some pressure to to manipulate you on certain things that come up, you know. But in general, this spell, this fog, is just a place of complacency. And so you're kind of numb. And so crying is a sign that you're not numb anymore. That's good. That's good. So before we move forward, let me just say this too. Because we're going to talk about learning next. All the searching and the learning that we do, okay? Sometimes I feel that focusing on the bad things like deception and manipulation and cluster B personality disorders and wolves in sheep's clothing and all that is necessary to learn, but also if you focus a lot on it, this is just from my personal experience, I feel like it can kind of perpetuate this feeling of defeat, you know, subconsciously. And so I want to help build you up. And even though I want the things that I share with you all to bring you insights and to get the wheels turning, ultimately I want the spirit that I bring forth on my channel to be one of empowerment, one of victory, one of life, the spirit of life, not the spirit of decay, because we're just so focused on these bad things. You know what I mean? I want my messages to build you up and to lift you up, right? You know, it's spring, it's Easter today, the day I'm filming. Happy Easter. And I want to encourage you that new life is coming. If you're not there yet, it's on the way. And so just keep that, you know, little breadcrumb in the back of your mind as we move forward in the message today. So, again, learning about deception and all these hard things is really important. But life is about more than that. And yet, you can't force yourself to focus elsewhere if you're just feeling called to focus on these things. It's kind of like you can try to force yourself to, you know, like, I don't want to think about this anymore. But if you're feeling called to study these things, you know, more and stay focused for a while longer, then you're going to be discontented if you are trying to force yourself to go against what you feel inside, you know. And then we have logic. We have logic. And logic can be faulty, incomplete, persuaded, influenced, and therefore wrong. It's very limited, you know. And then we have feelings, okay? Since we're talking about healing. And sometimes feelings seem to have a mind of their own, don't they? And then we have worldly comforts. Like routines or fun experiences or validation. You know, that feels good. But for most of us, you know, it's those worldly comforts. They're the first to go when we experience the dark side of this human life. It's kind of like everything related to worldly comforts becomes very superficial. You know, it's no longer satisfying, you know, largely. So what's left? What's left on this healing path? So I would say many philosophies talk about being the observer. Being the observer. Even the Bible says that we shouldn't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself, right? So we're going to talk today about what it means to just be. To just be. So the etymology of the word be from the Proto-Germanic is bijou, B-I-J-U, which means I am and I will be. Where have we heard this before? I am and I will be, right? Feels deep, right? Feels big to me. And, you know, I just want to encourage you too. Sometimes we truly do get direct insights from studying language. So if you just feel this prompting, you know, if God puts a particular word on your heart, you know, or just right in front of you, like in Bruce Almighty, there's like a sign plopped right there in front. Maybe look into it. You know, maybe there's some insight just waiting, like a little treasure, waiting to be opened, you know, and discovered. Yes, so I thought that was cool to just be. Be means I am and I will be. I love that it's present, and future. Notice it's not I was. It's not past focused. So my daughter, like I said, she's into some video games now, and so she's got this new one just came out. It's called Princess Peach Showtime, and it's pretty cool. I thought it was going to be kind of, simplified for little ones and stuff, and it's cool the way they made it, because they kind of made it where it kind of fits everybody, and it's kind of like you can progress, even if you've only played on a young child's level. You can still progress, but there's still more you can find if you invest the time in a particular scene or whatnot. It's really cool. So but it's the whole premise, the whole set or plot of this game, remember it's called Showtime, is that it all of it happens in a theater. Okay, it's got different floors, and each floor has different plays. You go through these doors, you go through these, you open these different doors into different rooms in the theater, and each one has its own play. And then as you're playing as Princess Peach, she gets to become these different characters. It's a really cool game. It truly is. But through the whole game, she has this helper or this guide that goes with her, just like I told y'all in Mario Wonder. It's the same thing. There's a little prince, spirit or whatever character that goes with Mario or whoever you choose to play as. There's a helper, there's a guide. Same thing in Showtime. And this guide is like this little star, and her name is Stella, which means star. And she's kind of like hovering, right here at Peach's head, and she's just going along with her and just kind of gives her little tips and encouragement along the way, right? She's cool. And the other thing about this game is there's these different moments where Peach just kind of glows. She begins to glow with this energy. It's kind of like she's working with energy to defeat the darkness in the game. And so like there's this beautiful, kind of like my logo for this channel, ironically, this beautiful bright blue, light blue, glowing light that just, it's kind of has this matrix look to it when it just starts to fill the area around Peach. And then it's within her, it's all around her, and her dress kind of just does like this, like there's wind, and it's you can tell it's a positive, good, and powerful energy that she's immersed in, right? That she's working with. And so she goes around working with this energy, and there's all these little characters that are in need of like support and help, and she'll just kind of you just push a button and there's like this swirl of energy that she just kind of throws out there, and you can watch the mindset of these characters who are really in despair. They have their heads hung down, and they're like, oh, I used to be able to do this or that, but now the enemy is gonna win. And sometimes you can just come up on one of these characters and just push the button, and suddenly it just changes their mindset, and they're like, hey, wait a second, and they are suddenly gifted with this positive mindset. And because of that, it's like faith, right? They're able to see things clearly, and they're like, oh, I know what I can do. Oh, wait a second. It's like they're gifted with eyes to see. So there's like this moving, dynamic, fluid, fluctuating current that is charging up in the air all around Peach and inside of her, right? And it feels to me very symbolic through the spiritual lens, especially. It's really cool. And I also want to mention too, this is what makes things happen in the game. It's really this energy. They portray it very well, in all the imagery and the symbolism. It's really well done. And so I feel like if you're the kind of person that likes symbolism, like a myth and fairy tale and legends and things like that, you would probably enjoy some of these games because they're heavy in symbolism too, and you get to actually interact with it. It's pretty cool. But the funny thing is, when she's going through these different scenes and she's battling, the evil in these different scenes, it seems a little bit kind of effortless. You know, yeah, you got to put in effort, but it's kind of like she's light on her feet. She's just able to defeat the evil enemies with some amount of ease. And on the opposite side of things, when you look at the villains in these games, they're very what's the word I want to use? Their character, the essence of their characters all have like this weight to them. It's like when they're coming at you to attack you, they're going to smash you. They're going to just jump on top of you and crush you. It's like this, and I think that's symbolic. It's like this weighty, cumbersome spirit that they're fighting with, right? And yet Peach is on the opposite side. She's just dancing around and swirling and twirling. And again, it's kind of like this difference in density, you might say. Pretty cool. And I think that's very symbolic too. It reminds me of in the Bible where Jesus says, you know, to lay down our burdens, that his yoke is light. See, it's kind of like that illusion that, you know, weakness is bad, when in truth, weakness is where the energy of the higher power, the divine, can actually now, you know, come into your life and work through you. It's kind of like all the weight of the world is nothing but distraction and obstruction. And so that's what I was reminded of. It's where Jesus says, my yoke is light, you know. It's kind of like watching her in this game is like watching faithful energy in action, you know. So moving on, there are these types in this concept or theory called human design. And the types of people, you know, labels that kind of help, you know, give you a different perspective are people can be called or classed as manifestors, projectors, reflectors, and generators. And there may be others, I'm not sure. But I feel like this is kind of like just another lens to look through with regards to understanding humanity and how, you know, we're all made different and unique, and we have different gifts. You know, even the Bible talks about how we all have different gifts, you know, as being members in one body, one spiritual body, right, of Christ. And so through the Christian lens, you know, and I like things like that kind of make you think. Also, like this book, when it's talking about reincarnation, it just makes you think. It's just stuff to think about. But ultimately, I choose the stance of not really labeling myself. Because through the Christian lens, we can all have access to that inner guiding light that will go with us everywhere, right? And sometimes it's quiet. Really, really quiet. But, I've reached a stage in my healing, on my path, in my journey, and I'm not really sure how to define it or to label it. Maybe it's a place of humility, a place of testing my patience, a place of testing my faith. I don't know, but I feel called sometimes, more frequently lately, to just be, and that's it. It's almost like positioning myself to be still, which the Bible talks about, you know. So think about how busy we are just in this human life, this human experience. You know, we're so distracted. How can we hear God that way? It's when we get still. You know, again, the Bible says to be still and know, that I am God, the great I am, right? To me, that verse where it says be still and know, I don't see the and know part as a directive. Like, hey, you need to be still and know this. I see it as a result of being still. If you become still, you will know. Be still and know. In other words, if you still yourself, you can then have the eyes to see. you can then be receptive to this divine energy and insight and guidance. You know, that's the knowing comes when we get still. In other words, things are revealed to us then. You know, they already are, but there are things obstructing our ability to receive and conceive of them. You see what I'm saying? So I think that's a place of revelation, you know, when we can just be still. And it's an act of faith. It truly is an act of faith to surrender our striving. But the Bible talks about perfect peace, you know, because nothing else is perfect in this human experience. But we can take the simple action of being still, and there we can find perfect peace, you know. It is an act of faith. And ironically, and there's a lot of people that talk about this, when you're able to get there, this is the place where, and the time when, things happen for us. It's kind of like the way of the world is to strive for things to happen. But God's way is faith. And yes, I know the Bible says faith without works is dead, but faith has to come first. It's kind of like when you get still and you have these revelations and these insights. At some point you'll be given a prompting, you know, of what action to take, you know, to do your part as a co-creator in manifesting, you know, newness in your life and in the lives of others, you know. But God's way is a gentle surrender and one of trusting, right? And trusting of what? Trusting that His promises will be fulfilled. Okay, what are His promises for us? Well, He's told us He has plans for us. I just want you to remember that. Wherever you are, if it's not a place where you really want to be, or you're in a place of, you know, disappointment, or even feeling just very brokenhearted or broken, or whatever it is, you're kind of like just feeling at a loss and discouraged. That's not the end. You're not there yet. God has plans for you. Okay? And it says, you know, that His word will not return to Him empty. It's going to happen. So, yes. Plans, good, positive plans. So even when your life is stagnant and you feel the spirit of death upon you, God is making things happen behind the scenes. Is that the saying? Behind the scenes? I think so. But yeah, it's behind the veil, you know, however you want to frame that. He's working, He's at work, He's cooking, He's busy. But I feel our part is to be quiet enough and still enough that we are capable of receiving particular promptings on what is our part, you know, like I said, and when. So death is not the end. Death is not the end. But this stage in your life, if you are stuck in this stage where you feel the spirit of death in your life, this stage in your life will come to an end. So just know that, okay? Maybe the stone hasn't rolled away for you yet, okay? But it has for Jesus, right? Who is proof through the Christian lens. I hope that you're able to receive this encouragement regardless of your beliefs, okay? The stone has rolled away for Jesus, who is proof that life is and always will be victorious over death. The spirit of death is a lie. Okay? Lies are temporary. The truth will always prevail. You know, at some point. Okay? It's kind of like when the Bible, I think, talks about, you know, Satan, you know, having authority over this world or whatever. It's temporary. It's just a short season. Okay? The spirit of death is the same way. It's not going to stick around forever. It's a lie. And lies are not forever. The truth is forever. Okay? So it's a trap. It's a trap to fall into believing the spirit of death is the end. It's not the end. Okay? It creates fear. It creates striving. It creates a lack mindset. So no, it's temporary. At all levels, it's temporary. Okay? So there's no healthy reason or need to cling to a painful past. So be encouraged. So when we truly take this into our minds and our hearts, faith can be reborn or reestablished. Then and only then will the spirit of life be reactivated within us. So I hope this has been encouraging. Allow the sadness to come and go if you're still grappling with that. The spirit of death will try to hang on as long as possible, and yet there's this whole paradox of when we try to resist it or fight against it, it means that we're giving our attention to it and therefore strengthening it. It's like we're getting caught up in it by doing that. So it's kind of like the position of when you just be, you're sort of in a position of non-resistance. You're just allowing it to come and go. Feel it. Feel your feelings if you need to. Cry. And again, maybe you have this revelation, oh my gosh, I wasn't even able to cry for years because I was brainwashed. I was stuck in a trauma response, literally. I was numb or whatever it was, So just try to, see where you are through a different lens and understand that healing is happening. There is progress happening. God is at work. Always, always. And He does have plans for you. Big plans for you and good plans for you. So be encouraged. And I just hope that you enjoyed the message today. I thank you so much for coming along to hear it. I really appreciate you. I'm very grateful for you. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.